Right.
It's making me do all these little restrictions. What? Hold on.
All right. So you should see it.
Okay, hold on. It's making me do all these little things here. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hey.
Hey.
Oh. Let me see how I can do a watch party now from this page, because I'm on your page.
Yeah. So you can do a watch party, and then people who are not a part of Purpose for Purpose can still watch it.
Can I do a watch party from your page?
Yeah. So if you're watching it.
Oh, goodness gracious. Hold on. Okay, it says here, watch together with friends or a group. Okay, let me see here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting it. I'm going to share it to our church page, okay?
Okay.
Give me a second here.
Are we streaming already?
I think
yeah,
so.
I just started.
Okay, so I just started it. Okay.
I'm on.
All right. Diane is watching. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us, Diane.
Church page, okay? Okay. Give me a second here.
All right. I'll turn the volume down on the other thing.
I think
yeah, I just started.
Okay, so I just started.
Can you turn the volume down on the on your phone? So there's feedback. Diane is watching. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us, Diane.
Church page, okay? Okay. Give me a second here.
All right. I'll turn the volume down on the other.
I think
yeah, I just started.
Okay, so I just started. Did I just mess up something?
Can you turn the volume down on there's feedback?
Yes, hold on.
Diane is watching.
Well, now I can't hear.
No, are you watching it on your phone?
No,
I think you did a watch party.
okay.
You did it from the computer. Maybe she did it from
You have to do a watch party on a different device.
Hold on, Janita. Hold on. Yes.
Okay.
Because it totally kicked me out of Facebook completely.
No, are you watching it on your phone?
No, we're on the laptop.
You have to do a watch party on a different device.
Yeah,
Hold on, Janita. Hold on. Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm sorry. So I shouldn't have done the watch party from our church page?
No, different device.
On a different device, though.
We're on the laptop. Go to what?
Where we doing a watch party at?
It's streaming live to the church page.
Okay. Go find it.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
And stop it.
I'm sorry. Stop it here. I've done the watch party from our church page. Okay, hold on. We're gonna get this figured out. Sorry.
On a different device, though.
Okay, my bad. Sorry. Hold on.
Go back to it.
It's streaming live to the church page. It's streaming live to the church page. Hold on. Should I leave it?
Yeah, leave this page.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna get this figured out. Sorry. Okay, my bad. Sorry. Okay, my bad. Sorry. Hold on. Right here?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Okay, while we're with, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna just kind of introduce, kind of let people know what we're talking about. So for those that are watching right now, this is Casual Conversations. We normally do it on Instagram, but we are doing something different and doing it on Facebook. This Casual Conversation, we are going to be talking about marriage and just doing marriage God's way with Pastor Keith Jones and Lady Stephanie Jones of the Purpose Center Church in Ohio. Is it Columbus, Ohio, right?
Yeah, you can say, yes, we're in Westerville, but you could say Columbus.
Okay. Okay. And
Columbus,
Westerville.
Central Ohio area. We're actually located in, our church is actually in Westerville, but Columbus metro area.
Okay. Okay. And I saw on Facebook that you all are celebrating like 4 years. Is it 4 years already?
It's 4.
4, yeah. So 4 years. But we have had, and by the way, this is my husband, William Branch, and husband, William Branch, and he's going to join us today. And we're going to be talking about marriage. And I wanted to talk to Keith and Stephanie because we had the pleasure of being a part of their marriage ministry. I guess, gosh, it's been since 2004, no, 10, 11.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has.
When did you guys get on council?
They're very. We left in 2014. Yeah,
Okay.
2014. So when we were a part of their marriage ministry, it was phenomenal. They're very real, down to earth, and so I couldn't think of anybody better to bring into this conversation to talk about marriage. So thank you guys for joining me this Saturday morning. We're gonna just forgive Keith in advance for his attire. It's just out of line, just completely. For those that don't know, I went to University of Florida, and the Seminoles outfit is just so wrong, so wrong.
Don't make me fall. Don't make me fall.
Oh my God. But thank you guys for joining us. I mean, we'll get started. Do y'all have anything you want to say before we start, or you want to just jump right in?
Yeah, we can just jump right in. Thank you for having us.
Yep.
We finally got it to work a little bit, and I think I don't think I messed it up because I have something going on my side over here, so I don't know what's happening.
I can see you watching, so I think we're good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So I do have some questions, and we did have some people submit questions online, so we'll get to those as well. But I want to first ask, I titled this conversation "Marriage God's Way." I wanted to kind of just, what does that mean? Like when, marriage God's way, what does that mean?
Good.
Well, when you say marriage God's way, I really feel like, to me, it means that finding that person who you are equally yoked with. The Bible talks about do not be unequally yoked. And I really feel like when you find that individual, you'll know if you're spiritually connected. So as far as being married God's way, you should first and foremost want God to be a part of your marriage, to be the head of your marriage. And that should be the number one thing in my opinion.
So I would echo that. There are many people who, well, not many people, everybody's looking for some sort of relationship.
Yeah.
And they want to be married at some point, maybe have a family, 2.4 kids, the White House at picket fence and all of that. But if you don't have God at the center of that marriage, then the chances of that marriage surviving, we've been married 23 years now. The chances of that marriage surviving is going to be hard. Statistics show that over half of marriages fail. And that same statistic, unfortunately, is coming into the church. But so it starts with you being centered in God. And then when you are centered in God, then your relationship being centered in God, your marriage being centered in God, then the entire family.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm pretty sure as we go on, we'll point out some other things and some other things some other mistakes that people make under the guise of this is God.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear, like, growing up, I would hear, God needs to be the center of your marriage. God needs to be the center of your life. But no one ever really explained, like, no one really took the time. Like, what does that mean? Like, in a marriage, like, what does that look like? Having God as the center. Like, what are some examples of how that really translate into actual real life every day with your spouse?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
Is
I'll
it?
let Steph go first because she's gonna put the sugar out there first.
Okay.
What I'm gonna tell you this, Janita. A lot of people who get married these days, they tend to forget. In reference to how you're going to treat your spouse, how you guys are going to treat one another, and how you're going to be submissive, obey the word of God. I feel like a lot of people don't want to go that route because they don't want to follow the biblical principles. They just kind of want to do what they want to do. And so once you have God as the center, you know that what you do is pretty much you're consulting him first.
That's good.
So for men, the Bible says that we should love our wives as Christ loved the church. Right. So now we're gonna break that down a little further and get a little bit more granular. The last time I checked, means that we as willing to do any and everything to include die for our wife and be there for.
Mm-hmm. Are they watching TV?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Check.
I can.
That's what it says in the Bible. And we have to be able to align ourselves with the scripture, with what the Bible says. And I know it's hard beings. We can always make it.
Yeah, it's freezing.
Can you hear us?
I can now. Y'all, it froze.
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
Okay. I can hear you.
Okay.
We're back. Yeah.
All right.
I think I missed the
So
last
I don't know
part.
how much of that. I don't know how much of that did we get.
I missed the last part of what you were saying, Keith.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I heard the part about obedience.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, we got some technical difficulties.
Yeah, you can't hear me at all?
You're coming in and out.
Okay.
I don't know what we can do about that. Can you see anything?
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you. You can't hear me at all or see me?
Now we can.
Now we can, and you're good. You're clear now.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
I don't know. Okay. All right. Back in. Okay. Do you want to repeat?
Right. I don't even know if he can remember what he just said.
I know.
It was good though.
Yeah. So what I said, I try to remember it all. What I said was that the Bible tells us as men, I'm talking to the men now, that we should love our wife as Christ loved the church, right? And the last time I checked, Christ died for the church, which means we should be willing to give up everything to include our life for our wife. And so now on the other hand, and I didn't say this before, it tells the wife to be, dare I say this nasty word, but it tells the wife to allow the husband to lead her. How about that? I won't say the dirty word.
That sounds better. Yep.
You can say submit.
I wrote it down when Stephanie said it. I was like, she said submissive. Oh man, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think it's much easier for a wife to allow her husband to lead when he is actually being led by Christ and he's doing what he's supposed to do.
Right.
So I put the onus on the man to live up to a godly standard and set that godly standard and do that. And then I guarantee you, most of the time, the wife.
Are you there?
Okay.
I'm
not sure.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. So you said something that made me think, because you said it's easier for, or a woman would be more willing to follow her husband or allow.
Janita, we lost you again.
I can hear you. You can't hear me?
We're losing it. And I wonder if
Oh no. Yeah, you guys are froze on my side.
We can't hear anything on our end at all, Janita.
Okay.
It may not be you. It may be our connection here.
You think so? You want me to take that off?
I kicked my kids off the internet. They're not even getting on the internet right now. I was like,
we do have one upstairs.
I might need Tyler to get off that internet.
Well, like with everything that's going on, I mean, we're all home, and so it's tough.
Yeah, let me kick everybody off the internet.
While we're live, we're yelling at our boys.
Ask the question. Let me go do some damage control.
Okay. So my question is, when you're like I think Keith made a good point, that when your spouse is following, God and, seeking God for just for guidance and just how to live a godly life and letting God's ways be the standard, it's easier, right? You're more willing to follow your husband. But what if your spouse is not? What if you talked earlier, we talked about being equally yoked. So let's say you aren't equally yoked and he's not a believer, or maybe he's, gone away from, really following God. Like, how does that, as a wife, are you still supposed to follow? Still supposed to allow your husband to lead and follow? Like, what are you supposed to do in situations like that?
Absolutely. I'll put it this way: because a person is not equally yoked, that does allow their husband to be the head or to be in that role. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Come on, King.
They said it chose better.
Yeah. Don't listen to him.
No, I'm serious.
Janita, I think you.
Why is it still not doing it? I feel like I need to hardwire.
Only saying that because when a person gets married, it's supposed to be in order. So you have your head, which is your husband, and then I see.
Can you guys hear us okay?
I can hear you now.
No, I don't think so.
I can hear you. Is it us or?
Hello?
They're back.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Y'all were stuck for a while on our end.
Oh.
We're doing that on purpose.
Yeah. Pretty much that is exactly what it was looking like.
Oh no, they dropped off.
Do you feel like I need to go and hardwire in?
I don't know. Are you still live?
Yeah, I'm still live. I'm not sure. Yeah. Stephanie and you guys, we lost y'all. Oh, there we go. I mean, All
There
right.
you go.
What happened?
Girl, I don't know.
Did you had to go
I
on
had,
camera to
I switched our internet
I had Keith over here fiddling with something. The next thing it just blacked out. See, I'm allowing my head to go ahead and handle that.
Go ahead. Yes.
But I'm not even sure if you actually heard me or not before. But I was just basically saying that biblical principles should still apply whether your spouse is a believer or not. Because what you don't want is to have a marriage where if you're a woman, I'm speaking from my standpoint. If you're a woman, you shouldn't want to just run all over your husband. You should want to allow him to lead and guide your family, because I feel like that's God's order anyways, whether that person's a believer or not. Of course you have God and then you have man. Man was created before the woman, so it should apply in every aspect, whether that person's like a part of a church or not a part of a church.
Okay.
But I want to say this: we cannot discount the fact that dating matters, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people who have problems going into their marriage or early on in the marriage, and they think that these problems like all of a sudden appear. They didn't. They were there before you all walked down the aisle. You just did not pay attention to them, whether you closed your eyes or you chose not to. And so these conversations should be happening before you get married. This is why I say you choose better. What I mean by that is you need to be asking these questions. You need to have an understanding. What is your idea of a relationship with God? This is my idea of a relationship with God. How are we going to do this? Examine that person and see if they're not going to church, reading the Bible, praying, and doing things before you was married, it ain't gonna happen after you get married. Now, here's a caveat: Can God come in and arrest their heart? Sure, He can, but know that there's a risk that He may not do that, or she may not do that, and so you need to have those conversations before marriage, and you need to have them with an intermediary. What I mean is, go with a pastor or a counselor or somebody that can be in between and be able to referee that conversation, so that way you get it filtered and you get the correct answers and not the answers that your heart is looking for.
Right.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So not your mom and dad.
No. Mom and dad. Your BFF. No.
Look, we love our parents. We love our parents, but we keep them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have always been kept out.
Yeah. Absolutely. You want to ask your question?
What was my question?
About upbringing.
Oh yeah. So I have a question for you guys. So how much do you think upbringing has an effect on what your perception of marriage is, and then how you go about achieving what you think is a good marriage?
Oh, I think that's a good question. Your upbringing has a lot to do with your perception of marriage, as far as what you see when you're growing up as a child to when you're an adult. That can have a major impact on your relationship, because you already have these preconceived notions about what marriage should look like, but you're only learning it from the people who are a part of your life, of that big chunk of your life. I mean, while you were forming your thoughts and opinions and things like that, all you saw was just what was before you. And so if you grew up in a household where your family or your mom and dad is like constantly arguing and fighting all the time, that's going to be brought into your marriage, unless God changes that situation for you, unless you're born again. I'll put it like that. That's the only way that's going to probably change that perception. But at the same time, if you don't allow God to have that shift, put that shift in you, you're gonna do what you know. And it's just a part of human nature. We do what we know. So if that's all you know, that's what you're gonna do.
So it's this is why it's so important to allow God to arrest your heart.
Right.
Right. I tell you a quick story. I had a conversation with a young man. He's in his mid to late 20s. He called me up and he wanted to talk, and he's been married a couple of years, get ready to have his first kid. So he called me up and he wanted to talk about finances, right? And so he's reaching out, wanting to have this conversation about money. He said, I want to be able to take care of my family. My mom told me about you and all of their stuff and your success and with your family. And so I began to talk to him, and I had to deprogram his mind first, right? Because he's been listening to his friends about, you can get rich like this, you can make money like this, and I told him, look, there's nothing wrong with having a hustle, but if you're going to raise a family and you're going to deal with money, you got to have a long-term mindset.
Right.
But I had to deprogram his mind. So then we went to this conversation. He openly said, well, when I was coming up, my mom raised me single as a single parent. We never talked about money. And so I told him I was raised the same way. We never talked about money. But it doesn't mean just because you never seen anything modeled in your life, it doesn't mean that you cannot learn it later on. You have to be open. You have to be open to it. Now, it's an easier conversation with money than it is marriage because feelings get in the way. Love with a B get in the way. This is why it's so important for us to allow God to rest our heart and let God begin to deal with you, because just because you never seen it, it doesn't mean God can't teach it to you. You have to be open to it. The minute you throw at the walls and say, I love him, I love her, then you shutting down vital information that's going to help you make decisions going forward.
Yeah.
That's good.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think too, like when you all were talking, I thought, I grew up in a 2-parent home, and Will grew up within a single parent home. And so we brought different things to the table, just in how we, saw things happen. And it's not that one is better than the other, right? Because I have definitely brought some things into my marriage, especially communication, which we are going to get into. I'm not a great communicator. Will is,
What?
yeah. Right yeah. But you bring these.
Will, recorded. I got it recorded for you.
All right. Yeah. As long as you got the proof.
But we brought things like what we're talking about. We brought a lot of things into the marriage, or even coming into marriage. Like, I don't want to be like my mom, or I don't want to be like my dad. So we work really hard to not be like the people, those individuals in our life, whether it was a parent, a grandparent, your aunts or uncles. But I also think that it's so important to have mentors, like to have other people that have been married longer than you, that are also maybe in the same stage of life, but then also having people that you can also mentor. But I for us, it would have been very helpful to have people that have been on this road a lot longer than we have. Right. To kind of pour into us and, educate us and really help us. Like our first year of marriage, we had a couple, they kind of took us in. We're like their godchildren, they called us. They asked if they could adopt us. And I think we could have made it afterwards. I don't know, but it was rough. It was rough. Like, we didn't know what we was doing. But we had them to come in and really help us. And so I think that's also, it's really important, like to have those conversations while you're dating. But also to have mentors in your life that have been down that road. So I think that's really helpful for us too. And I think even after I think it's just good to have married friends. Like let's talk about that. Like just friendships as married couples, single friends versus married friends. I'm not gonna say one's right or wrong, but what are your thoughts about that?
Before we get into that, let me just back up to something you said about having mentors and people to guide you along the way.
I was going to probably say the same thing. Go ahead.
So you've been married too long.
Go ahead.
Stephanie and I do a seminar called RPM, which is just an acronym, but it's tuning up your marriage.
Rich and powerful marriage.
Rich and powerful marriage, right? And the seminar is to get people to tune up their marriage. People spend more time getting services and tune up on their cars than they do tuning up their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
People get married on day one, and 15 years later, they haven't tuned up their marriage.
Right.
They hadn't went back and maybe have a mentor in their life to sit down and talk to a counselor, read a book, go to a marriage seminar. They haven't did anything.
Right.
Yeah.
If your car needs to be tuned up to get the maximum amount of mileage out of it, what makes you think your marriage does need to tune up every now and then?
Right.
That's good. Yeah. That's because I think we don't think about counseling until there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No, like now we are on, we are, on E. We don't, now we want to go and really, do the work like you said. Yeah. I totally, I could. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It always costs you more to fix a car when it's broken than it is to get the oil changed. Right?
Yeah.
That's right.
And
I'm just going to tell you guys this because, I'm an advocate for people going to see a counselor and just receiving that type of help. You don't have to have problems in your marriage in order to sit down and talk to someone. You don't have to have that. People always think that in order for me to go and speak with a counselor or my spiritual leaders, I have to have problems. That's not true. I mean, it's all about just even having those conversations that you may not have been able to agree upon, having a mediator there for you. It can help you see the different perspectives or different thoughts. It's not about us taking one person's side over the other. It's just kind of helping you guide through that conversation that you probably were having that did not get resolved.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I think that's good.
So friends.
Yes. So you were talking about friends. Now state your question again for me. Good, because I
was just asking. I don't know what I said.
You were talking about being married and having single friends versus married friends.
Yeah, now life is different when you're single. But now that you're married, what does that friendship circle look like?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to tell you this, Janita. A lot of people, this is like something that a lot of people will probably debate. A lot of couples, because one or the other they have friendships, and those friendships are platonic relationships, male or female. And it's just one of those things where when they get married to their spouse, a lot of times I feel like some couples want to keep those friends their friends, and then they can't be. I'm gonna use myself for example. So if I have like some male friends, if I was feeling like those male friends need to be just my friends, it could be Keith's friends. I think that sometimes could pose a problem. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you don't want anything to ever come into your marriage circle. Now, you guys have that bond, you have that connection, and you don't want any outliers coming in. Not saying it's bad, but you have to be careful on how you're managing those friendships. So, for example, I had a lot of male friends before Keith and I got married, all platonic relationships. Now Keith are friends with them. And so
at first I didn't know what he was doing.
Child, he doing the most over here. He's just a hot mess. but now those friends are Keith's friends, and vice versa. Some of his female friends that he grew up with, they're now my friends. And we intentionally did that because he's already had a relationship with them, and he wants them now to see that the relationship that he has with me is important. And he's like brought me into his circle of friends. And that way everything just kind of stays on the up and up. You don't want anybody thinking anything funny going on behind the scenes. And so I just feel like if you have a single friend, that single friend should be you and your husband's single friend. It shouldn't just be your single friend alone. Like somebody you can just call and talk to on the side and be like, this is what my husband's doing to me. What do you think about that? Because they don't have nothing to say about that.
Yeah.
That's their business.
Yeah.
That's good.
So what had happened was
I ain't fooling with him.
Right.
Years ago, I went to a high school reunion, right?
Really cute.
And most people in my high school knew who I was, right? I wasn't the guy who nobody knew. Most people knew. I won't get into that. But so anybody knows Stephanie, she is a social butterfly. So she's going around the room talking to everybody. How do you know how this kid? And by the end of the night, she got telephone numbers, she got Facebook, all this stuff, man, and just like, yeah. And now they talk to her more than they talk to me. So,
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
That's funny. That's awesome though. Yeah.
Look, it's because, Janita, I'm gonna tell you this. Because all the stories that I heard about Keith from when he was younger, I wanted to see if those stories were really true. So So I went around the room finding out what did they know that I didn't know.
Oh my God.
I was doing homework.
Oh my God.
That's it.
I got you. I know. Verifying the story. Yes.
Right.
She was supposed to be arm candy. She went as the FBI.
FBI can be arm candy too.
I can't stand him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What else? Man, I have a lot of questions. I didn't realize I have a lot. Let's talk about conflict in marriage, dealing with conflict and disagreement. Like, I mentioned that I came into marriage kind of look with my own issues. And I kind of going back to therapy though, like I do believe that therapy is great for a couple. I also am a big advocate of doing it for yourself.
Absolutely.
Because you find out a lot about, yourself, outside of your spouse. That's probably contributing to maybe even how you're interacting, with your spouse. Let's talk like handling conflict in marriage. Like over the years, have you guys learned, have some best practices, that you learn for yourself or just in general for other people?
Absolutely. One thing that Keith and I, we always do, and this is something that we actually have learned, I'll put it that way, to do. When we first got married, it was like we were pretty much selfish individuals. We were both selfish. He wanted things his way. I wanted things my way. We had to come to an agreement that in order to get a conflict resolved, we had to respect each other. And I feel like that's a big issue. Sometimes we go into relationships and we refuse to respect one another. And so when there was a hot topic in our marriage, or we call it intense fellowship time, when it was time for some intense fellowship, Keith would tell me, I would tell him, I'd be like, I need to talk to you. And he would tell me, I need you to wait, because he would just be barely getting off of work. I would be standing by the door waiting for him to come in. And he'll tell me, I need a minute. So I will let him have his minute, his wind down time. And then by that time, it caused me to be a lot calmer in reference to what I had to say to him. So then he would come and approach me and he would be like, okay, what's going on, babe? And then by that time, it was kind of like my flames were starting to dwindle out. And I was like, all right, this is what I want to talk to you about. But right when it happens, meeting him at the door and be like, let's talk. No, that would never be a good thing. And so it just kind of got to some points, like even if we both ignored that respecting each other's space kind of thing, Keith would go off to himself, and then I would go off to myself, and then we would come back together once we had cooled down, because we didn't want to say anything to each other that was going to emotionally damage each other. Or harm one another in that way, because words, they say sticks and stones may break your bones, or words hurt. I don't believe that words will hurt, and it will stay with you forever.
Yeah, that's true.
The main thing to do is when you're having conflict is to attack the issue, not the person.
Right.
Right. Don't attack the person. So even though what's coming at you is coming from a person, attack the issue. Find out what the issue is and deal with it. A lot of times what you'll find out is that particular issue, he or she is addressing it from one particular standpoint that is contrary to how you would attack it.
Right.
And so therefore, you guys are arguing over how to attack a particular issue or how to deal with a particular issue. And then that gets into you this, and this is how you always do it. And you're just like your mama, you're just like your daddy, blah, 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 blah. And the issue.
What the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
And the issue is still hanging out there, and it hasn't been resolved.
Right.
You didn't even talk about the issue.
Right.
So keep the issue in the forefront.
Right.
She's not going to deal with it. You know, something comes up, she's not going to handle it the way I handle it. The way I dress. And so I got to see it from her point of view, from her vantage point. Why is that? Why is that? Well, this is how I do it. And then I can't criticize and say, well, why would you do a thing like that?
Right.
People said it all the time. Well, she did it because she's who she is.
Right.
So deal with the problem, address keep the problem forefront in your mind, and let's talk about the real issue at hand, and not all of the leaves on the tree. Because if you get caught up with the leaves on the tree, you're gonna forget about the root, and the tree will still be in your house.
That's interesting. Yeah. So it sounds to me like you're kind of addressing two different aspects. You said the issue, and then the other part is the response to the issue by the other person.
Right.
So from experience, I mean, we've been married for almost 14 years now. Part of me thinks that it's very difficult for you to do that in the heat of the moment. Like you just got to say, look, I tell you what, this is the issue. Got it. Let's go and come back. And then we can be cool, and we can kind of be like, well, what do you take issue with what I've done?
Yeah.
Why does that make you upset?
Right.
Okay, I understand now. I don't think you can when you're upset though.
Right.
Yeah. That's why Stephanie said there was times where we come in and say, okay, give me a minute. Let me do it. Because if you start talking about it, in the heat of that moment, right, you always gonna be dealing with the leaves. Go back, settle down, let's prepare yourself, and then go in and let's deal with the issue. And then sometimes this is for men. Sometimes we can't fix the problem. You want to get to it, you want to try to fix it, and you see, and sometimes you can see as plain as day, well, if we just do this, it'll be solved. Because we're fixers. God has created us to be a fixer. But you have to bring her along to that resolution.
Right.
And if she can't get there, you may have to take some bullets for the team until she can get there without attacking her.
So I just want to add one thing that Keith and I have adopted over the years is when I come to him with the issue or a situation, he'll ask me first, do you want me to fix it or do you want me to listen?
Good. Okay.
Yep. Good.
And if I tell him I want him to fix it, I need to be prepared to hear on my role what I did wrong in the situation.
Okay.
And if I want him just to listen, he'll just listen with no response. And so if I tell him, how come you're not saying nothing? He'll tell me, you told me to listen. You ain't say fix it.
That's it.
And then,
are you done? Okay.
And then literally the conversation is over because he'll shut me down. And I'm like, really?
Yeah. We want a little something. We want a little something.
Yeah.
I so that kind of reminds me, so like when we first got married, we would get into it and I would just retreat. Like I would be gone, like to the room, close the door, like whatever. Like I just couldn't deal with it. I would completely shut down. And it was this before kids, because Will had time to do this. He would run behind me and he'd be trying to get me to talk. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. Like I wasn't able to, I didn't want to process like how I was feeling. I just would just, keep it to myself, shut down. And in my mind, we would just get over it. But Will is also, he likes to talk things out like as he's thinking about it, and I'm more internal. Like I need to find that space and kind of like process like how I'm feeling and what's going on, and then I can talk to you about it. Because kind of like what you were saying, like if you catch me at the door in that moment, I'm not able to really articulate kind of how I'm feeling and really process it and determine like, okay, this is just my emotional response. Like outside of emotion, I can't. Outside of how I'm feeling emotionally, like this is the logical, like this is really what's going on. Being able to separate my emotions from like the actual situations. I wasn't able to do it in the moment, like right then. Getting better. But for me, I would be if I felt like I was forced to have that conversation without being able to pull away, I would say things that I would regret because I was out in my emotions. And I think that's one of our rules is like, if we say like, I need a minute, yeah, like you got to give me a minute, or I need a day, like whatever it is, depending on the situation, we have to. And I think that's important. Like just giving space to the situation is really, really important.
Right. I agree with that. And however, I do also agree that you don't want to let a disagreement or a conflict like fester too long. You don't want it to linger too long. You know, the Bible talks about don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And it also talks about a soft answer turns away. So what I'm thinking is, you know, like I said, you know, Keith and I, one thing we did not do is let it go for days. You know, if I said a minute, it was just probably maybe like about 5 or 10 minutes, maybe about 15 at the most. And then I had to, for lack of a better word, put on my big girl drawers and get out of my feelings and go back to him for real and go back to him and be like, you know what? I was having, you know, an issue. And right now, you know, I'm not totally, you know, over my feelings, but I'm able to talk better. You know, if you can't have a conversation without the pointing of the fingers, you did this, you did that, and not see what you did wrong yourself, then I think that going about getting to a resolution, it probably will never happen because you're not seeing what you did. You're seeing what the other person did. So once you become mature enough to understand, I did this, then I feel like that's when you guys can get to a good happy medium. You may not always take each other's side, but at least you agree to disagree, and it's important. You're not at each other's throat.
If I can add one other thing, and we got somebody who asked a question. Somebody said, "Do we ever go to bed mad after argument?" Nah, she just said that. We have to talk about it. You know, 12, 1 o'clock at night, we got to talk about it. We got to get this. We got to get this done. But so let me add this other thing. And that was Timon, by the way, Timon Reed. We have to be able, when it comes to conflict, we have to be able to know our spouse.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Because this is why dating matters. Because if you don't, and I'm not talking about knowing them superficially, knowing who they are, because they respond to things based on who they are and their upbringing and how they and their perception of what's around them. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you agree with it or not, that's how they respond. And so if you take a step back and you really know your spouse and you listening to the response, you would know that you will be able to discern whether it's in that moment, is it effective or is it coming from another place. And when you but even if it's coming from another place, you don't have the right to attack your spouse.
Right. Yeah.
You love them through that. It's your job to help compensate for their weakness, just like it's their job to compensate for your weakness.
Wow. Yeah.
Yo yin, yo yang. I mean, you yin, she's yang, or he's yin, she's yang. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, just for example, if you have a spouse that came up in an abusive household, right? They're gonna have some deficits. They're gonna see the world a little bit different than what you see the world.
Right.
You have to be prepared. You have to be prepared to help cover that because they're gonna respond based on what they have been accustomed to. And you have to be prepared for that. You can't attack them for that. You're gonna have to compensate for that. And this is when we do marriage seminars, we talk to marriage couples, I always tell them that I can solve all marital problems with one word: selfishness. Because it's a selfless act to be able to compensate for your spouse's deficits. That's a selfless act. You have to put yourself out there because you now have to do something that you ordinarily wouldn't do. haven't done or find it difficult to do.
Right.
Yeah. That's good.
It's interesting because that echoes what you just said a few minutes ago biblically about how, you know, Christ loved the church that he died for, and that's how a husband should for his wife, literally making that decision every single day to be selfless and to sacrifice despite kind of what you're getting back and what's kind of happening. That's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's really good.
Yeah.
So you kind of you're leading into my next question, because you said something really good, that it is our job. Like, we have to know our spouse. And I think about, like, when, you know, when we're dating, that interest that we have in that other person, like in that person before they became our spouse, like, we're asking questions, we're trying to go deep, we're really trying to get to know them. And then you get married, and it seems like sometimes that stops. Like, we no longer take that same level of interest into continuing the conversation with our spouse, because the truth, like, we change, like, over time, like, we all, like, we're growing. And so if you are never going on date nights and having those, or maybe not even date night, just having pillow talk at night, asking questions, you don't really get to know, you stop getting to know your spouse in this essence. Like, the person that you know, or that you knew up until a certain point, is just kind of who you know, and they're continuing to evolve, and you have no idea, you know, what's going on, you know? So I kind of, it leads to, like, this idea, like, continuing to know, like, get to know, like, date your spouse. Like, we study so many, you know, we study how to become really good at our job, or we, you know, we're constantly reading up on to be more knowledgeable about things, but are we really taking that same amount of effort when it comes to our spouse?
Yep. Some of us need to get CEC with our spouse, continuing education credits. Because the woman that I married 23 years ago is not the woman that's sitting next to me now.
Right.
She's different. So now I had to learn that all over again. But again, I keep putting emphasis on this. I keep putting emphasis on dating. To get off to a sure footing, you have to date, and you have to have a wholesome dating period, or what the old folks used to call courting. And this is the time to talk about God and how God's going to play into that relationship, because you want to get off to a sure footing. Most people, when they date, they want to talk about, you know, I love you, this and that. Let's go date. We're going to take trips. We're going to do this. You see them on Facebook living our best life and blah, 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 blah. But have you talked about money? Have you talked about sex? Have you talked about raising kids? Have you talked about how God is going to play a factor in your life while you taking a cruise to Jamaica and all this stuff? Talk about things that are substance if you want to have a marriage that's going to last a lifetime.
You know, I just want to add, piggyback on what Keith is saying. You know, I don't see nothing wrong with people, you know, of course, dating, and I'm gonna put it this way: dating without the ideal of getting married. And I'm saying that because what I don't, hold on. Let me explain.
First lady.
Look, hold on. The reason why I pulled over him. The reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of people will jump into a relationship, and the first thing they want to do is talk about marriage. And that may not be the person that you need to be with. And so it's okay if you're just dating somebody just to date. I mean, have that opportunity to go out, enjoy a good dinner, you know, just quality time. But but let me tell you this.
Who's paying for the dinner though?
Anybody, it don't matter. Especially if it's not if it's not a serious relationship.
Hey, Will.
I think serious. I think anybody can pay for dinner, especially if you're not serious about the relationship. But I will let me blanket that statement by saying this: when you get into a relationship and you both know that it's marriage, your marriage material, and you could see yourself with that person for the rest of your life, I think that's when the dating turns more serious. And that is when you're trying to see if that person really is marital material, if that person is the one that is for you. And I'm only saying that because Keith and I, when we first started dating each other, we dated pretty much as friends. We weren't talking about marriage when we first started dating, although I wanted to marry him, but he wasn't at that level yet. He told me, he told me I'm not there yet. And I appreciate him being honest with me because you know me, I'm a love struck. And I'm like, I want to be with you for the rest of my life. And he's like, he's like, let me get to know you a little bit better.
Right.
So as our relationship, evolved and we got to know each other better, that's when we started having those deep conversations. That's when we started talking about credit. We talked about credit when we were dating. We talked about money when we were dating. I asked him if he wanted to have children. Now, he told me, he said yes. At that particular time in our relationship, I could not have children. And so that was an issue. And I wanted to see if he was going to move on or if he would stay. And so, like I said, those serious conversations had to be had. I didn't want to hold anything back from him and be like, surprised after we get married, I can't have kids. So when I brought that subject up to him, which was a real touchy subject for me because I wanted to have kids. So he told me, he said, you know what? I love you so much that we can adopt. And that's what he told me. Although God blessed me to have children.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I wanted to see what his standpoint was, what his take was, because some men will be like, if you can't have my child, I don't want to be with you.
Right.
So like I said, you gotta figure out what type of relationship you're in. If you're in a relationship just to go out and hang out, that's different.
Yeah.
I don't think those serious subjects need to be had or be talked about. But if you talk about marrying this person or thinking about marrying this person, you need to get all in the business. He knew how many credit cards I had. He knew how much I owed on each one. He knew what my credit looked like. Seriously. Ooh. I mean, we went down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, I had a spreadsheet. I had a spreadsheet.
we got deep.
I mean, but I think that's good because then you start trying to build a life together and you want to buy a house and a car and do all this other stuff and their credit's jacked up. Right. I mean, that's another stressor on the marriage, right? Because now we're in the situation we can't, purchase a home or a house or whatever, you need to do. Right. But that is not a conversation that most people are comfortable having. Right. Before marriage, it's kind of almost like that's what we talk about after we get married. When really it's not. You're right. Because your credit score 400.
Right.
Let's not talk
about take a break.
Talk about an apartment, or talk about something that you can possibly afford. No need to talk about a 5-story house when all you can live in is a cardboard box. I'm just saying. Right. It's like you gotta be real. And we were honest with each other. And he told me that all these bills that you got, they weren't like bills that had a whole big giant balance on them. It was a small amount, but it was a lot of them. He told me, and he told me, he said, you got, look, full disclosure, Janita, I ain't playing. He told me, you got to get rid of these bills. He said, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
For real. And he told me, he said, I do not want to get married. And these were his words. He said, I do not want to get married in debt. And I was like, wow. And so from that standpoint, he took all my bills.
Yeah.
And he took all my bills and he paid off every single one.
Before we were married.
Before we got married.
I'm about to have one sent over to you.
He took them and paid them all. Girl, I was so happy to be out of debt.
That was before y'all got married?
Before we got married.
It took me over a couple years to do it.
No joke. Before we got married.
That's how much.
Wow.
Because I don't want people.
Yeah, but that's selflessness, though. We talk about it.
And commitment to the relationship.
He had to come up with a plan on how to tackle my bills because he didn't have any.
I don't want people to think that I was rich when we got married, something like that. No,
he was making $5 an hour.
Yeah, and so I had to come up with a plan. I was fresh out of the Army making. Well, no, I got promoted, so I was making $750 an hour.
There you go.
$750 an hour, and I was going to school.
Right.
All right. And so I had to come up with a plan to continue to pay my little bills and her bills. So it took me a while to undo that. So, but we worked together. Her part was trust me, right? As he cut up those cards
and not make any more debt.
yeah, not making it more debt. My part was to follow through with what I said.
Yep.
Beautiful. I like
awesome.
that.
Yeah, that's really
wow.
Good. Yeah, I have to say, when you were talking about kind of those two different ideas of dating, the light dating versus the serious dating, I've never heard, honestly, I'm late 30s. I've never heard of that before. That idea of just kind of like, just kind of going out dating, because I feel like, especially now with people getting married at a later age, I feel like oftentimes when they find somebody, they're like, hey, you good? You got, all right, let's go ahead and tie this knot, because
exactly.
Versus this idea of enjoying people and enjoying that idea of getting to know each other. And that way, when you finally get married and settle down, you don't have this feeling like you missed out on something, because the first person that was viable, I'm saying, you dove in with viable. That's like, hey, you good, right? And then 5 years later, you like, dang man, I wish I would have dated the helicopter pilot from Brazil. On Inside Out.
Yeah. What would they? But seriously, Will, it is true, because a lot of women these days, they get, and I don't want to use this word to be negative, but they get desperate and they start looking at their biological clock, and they're like, "Oh, it's ticking. It's time for me to find a man." So the first person I date, I need to marry them. No, anything is possible. Look, if Janet Jackson can have a baby late in her years, anybody else can do the same thing. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah,
so we got to jump on the bandwagon.
That is good.
We'll got some more questions coming in. I'm pretty sure.
Kind of sticky.
Why I wanted to focus on that, Janita, is because marriage is about evolution. If you miss that first step for the first couple of years, the second and third and fourth evolution of your marriage is going to be very, very difficult. Most people don't make it past that second evolution of marriage, and so because they didn't start out with that first foundation, that start off with a solid foundation first.
Right.
Which is the asking the questions in the dating phase.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Ask those serious questions. Ask them.
Yeah. See, we are embarking on probably that third evolution now, because we are facing an empty nest. Right. One that's in college, one that's a junior, and so that third evolution is coming up for us, and so we're gonna have another whole set of challenges coming up.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, your seasons of life do impact your marriage. Like when you're just talking about that, we were talking about, was it this morning? Mm-hmm. It was something, because we were downstairs, it was just the two of us. It was all quiet and nice. Mm-hmm. And Zoe comes down the stairs, like I hear it coming. I'm like, man, like, I love Zoe, but like kids add a whole nother element, to marriage and trying to just navigate life with kids. Like it's different when it's just the two of you all, then it's different when you have kids, and then as your kids, get older, there's different seasons, because we have one that's going to be, next year, or how old, like 12. He's getting ready to go into teen, like he's preteen, and that's been a whole other thing for us. And so, like you're saying, I can't even imagine emptiness. So I can't even step into what the season that you all are getting ready to get into, because I imagine, life would be different, but I know that life has been different for us, because especially having two, and then bring in, like, there's 7 or 6 year difference between Max and Zoe. And so it was like it was a whole nother life for us. And so there's always that adjustment. And I feel like when it can put a strain on your marriage if you aren't, intentional and just being, just working together as a team. Right. Be difficult. So wow. It kind of I want to kind of go back to the dating thing, but kind of dating as like married. So, just continue, like, how do you, so to bring kids into it, right? It gets harder to date sometimes, when you have kids. It can be challenging for some, and just having that consistent date night. So, like, what are some, like, how, like, let's just talk about dating, like dating your spouse, having the importance of date night, and just kind of keeping, this is kind of a 2-part question, but kind of keeping the marriage exciting. You know, like you can get caught in a routine, and before long, I mean, it's lost its fire.
Yeah.
Girl, look, I hear you, child. I got some pointers. Let me see.
Okay.
PhD in that.
Look. What is this broadcast rated?
Oh God. Oh my goodness.
I'll keep it PG-13.
Okay. We can do that. Yes.
But you know, in all seriousness, that is something that, you know, I love to read about, and I love to talk to couples about. And the reason why is because there are so many things that you can do to keep your marriage exciting. Even with children, you know, Keith and I, when we started having kids, we couldn't go out like we used to because we couldn't find a babysitter. You know, it was to a point where we had to be creative, and our creativity came into place where when the boys would go to sleep, we would have a mini date night, and we would throw a blanket on the floor, and we would sit there with a blanket and eat our dessert, and just kind of talk to each other, you know, and it kind of made us feel like we were doing something, we were somewhere else in a sense, although we were right there in our living room. And like I said, you know, having children and trying to come up with creative ways to stay connected, that's a challenge in itself. But you have to do things that will keep your spouse excited. Now, like I said, I'm gonna keep it PG. So, so I'm gonna tell you a couple of things that I've don't cover your face, because you I'm gonna do right, Janita. I ain't gonna do you like that, girl. I'm gonna do right. I'm gonna do right.
She like,
so I'll just Will play watermelon. Y'all making me sweat.
You blushing, she blushing, y'all.
Let me fan. Hold on. I gotta fan myself for a second. Woo. Okay, so hold on. No, one of the things I had to do, I bought books, and I bought books about creative ideas to use when you're dating or when you're married, should I say, to keep the marriage alive. And one of the things that I took from that book, it was funny because I went and got a book of Post-it notes. You know, we were newly married, and like I said, our boys were young, and they're only 3 years apart. So, you know, when KJ was when KJ was 3, Tyler was a baby. So it was like we couldn't really do much. So I went and got this book of Post-it notes, and on every single sheet of the Post-it note, I wrote, "I love you," on every single sheet. And I posted those notes throughout the entire house, to include his underwear drawer, his sock drawer. And so let me tell you. So it was hilarious because years passed and the boys were older. And Keith pulled out one of them Post-it notes. And I was thinking, look, I'm serious. I think it was like 5 or 6 years later. Keith pulled out one of those Post-it notes and he was like, "Do you remember this?" And I said, "Where'd you get that from?" He was like, "It was stuck to the back of my drawer."
Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So I even put it in the stuff that he had to take with him to work. You know, that was one of the things that I did. And that right there, it sparked, you know, that excitement. So I'm gonna tell you another thing that we did. Keith is so funny because you know, as we were newly married, he traveled a lot. And so I was stuck home with the boys. And so he started sending me letters through the mail. And these letters would say stuff like, "I can't wait to be with you." And at first it scared me because I was like, "What?" I'm like, who got my information? So then it was funny because I would call him and I'd be like, I got something to tell you. And he would be like, what? And I said, I got a letter today. And he was like, what does it say? And he was pretending like he didn't even know he sent it. And so it was crazy because the letters would come in like maybe weeks apart. And it would have a different phrase on them. And then the last letter that he sent, it said, will you join me for dinner on such and such date? He had made arrangements with, at that time, my parents. We never wanted to bother my mom and dad. He made arrangements and we went out on a date. And it was the most romantic thing that I could ever imagine because I wasn't expecting the letters to come in like that. And for me not to know it was from him because he typed them all. And so they were all typed. So it was like, I didn't know who they're coming from. So I'm saying before text. Yeah, before text, of course. It's a whole new ballgame now. But I'm saying different little things like that can always help keep your right. He even started faxing them to me to my job. He got my fax number.
It's a fax machine.
I'm kidding. Don't even try it.
Right, I know. Virtual slap.
Look, I know we got y'all by a lot of years, but ain't that many.
Right.
No, but he started faxing to my job also. And then so they would come through the fax machine. And it was funny because the department that I was in, we had our own fax machine. And so one of the girls would get him off the fax machine and she would give them to me. And she would be like, you got something here. And it's from, I don't know who it's from, but it was like little love messages. But it was so daggone funny because at first, like I said, it was scaring me because I didn't realize it was him that was doing it. But just doing different little things like that to keep the relationship exciting. Always try to make a point to put your spouse first. Even if you're newly married with kids, or even been married a lot of years. Always do things that will cause your spouse to feel important. So like, for example, if you know your spouse's favorite candy, why not just out of the blue bring that favorite candy home? It doesn't have to be nothing major. It doesn't have to be nothing expensive. If you know your spouse loves a favorite Starbucks drink, go get it and bring it out of the blue. People surprise me. I'm not big on flowers, but every now and then, he'll come to the house and he'll have like a rose or something. And I'm not really big on flowers because flowers usually die. I love plants more than flowers, but it's one of those things where if you know what your spouse likes, do it.
Yeah.
I want to answer a question out here. What are the evolutions to marriage? And this is the gospel according to Keith. I call it evolutions, right? So I think that first evolution is that honeymoon phase, right? Because you're married, just got married. You walk down the aisle, people done jumped over the broom, and everybody done celebrated. So you're opening up the wedding gifts, and everything's fine, right? And so that, depending upon who you are, that could last 6 months, it could last 3 years, right? That next phase is going to be that Norman phase where you're trying to, in that family, you're trying to build a family. And this is where it gets tricky because in today's environment, sometimes there's blended families. So you skip that honeymoon phase, right? Where it's just you two in the house and you rush home and you tear your clothes off and you start making love right there at the threshold. Those days are gone now. So, or you might miss that phase because it's blended. It's just a blended family, right? Yeah. Kids are already involved, and then the next phase is going to be the empty nester phase, right? Where now spent so many years trying to raise his family, do things, bought houses, raise kids, and been to soccer games, football games, missed a lot of time with each other, and now you sit in the house like, what do we do now, babe? So, and then that last phase is gonna be that retirement phase. you on that, you on a downswing of life. The what's that movie? The Notebook.
Yeah.
How glorious is that when two couples sit there and hold hands and they go on in glory. And so and this is just a gospel according to Keith. Those are going to be the 4 phases. But as you can see in today's environment, if you don't have a good date life and a good honeymoon phase, that's the foundation period. That's the foundation period to get to normalizing something, which is that family phase. So, yeah. And one last question that I wanted to address while we're in this. This is for Pinky. She says she's trying to have a baby and she's
35. I don't think that was a question. I think that was just a statement.
Okay.
It says, I'm trying for a baby and I'm 35. But I don't think she was asking a question.
Let me just encourage her. As you heard my wife's testimony, God did it for us. God did it for us. So I can't tell you anything about. I know that there's a lot of medical science research and breakthroughs these days, but our bishop laid hands on her, and that's what did it. And so faith did it for us. So we can continue.
Oh, okay. Kind of think while you were talking about like different things that we can do for our spouse to kind of keep things exciting. It made me think about just the time that we're in right now with the coronavirus and social distancing. Like this is new. Like we haven't experienced anything like this, but just kind of there's nowhere to go. What I just don't know what to do. What to do? Help me, Lord.
I know you struggle now. Because you always go somewhere.
It's different, right? Because it's not even it's I think for women, men too, because there are households where everybody is home. Right. Like Will is he's still required to go in, and so it's like you don't get a break. And so like for me, I'm with the kids all day long until they go to sleep, but we can't say, let's bring in a babysitter, or we're not going to say, let's bring in a babysitter and let's go out, because where are we really going? So I'm just like, I'm trying to be creative and think of ideas that we can do like now, but this also could potentially cause a lot of stress for marriages right now, because whoever's home with the kids, or everybody's home with the kids, you got cabin fever, and it's just what can families and couples do right now to deal with what we are going through?
That's a good question. My boys, they're older, but we're all here together. Keith usually is traveling. He travels, a couple times a week. But like I said, my boys are older. But now that we're all 4 here, it's getting to a point where my 2 teenage boys are working my nerves. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna tell you no story. So I had to kind of do a woosah moment, because I was thinking, I'm about ready to send them somewhere. I don't care where they go at this point. We ain't supposed to be leaving, but they gonna leave. They have to go. So I told them what we started doing is each morning, and if it wasn't for breakfast, or each day, should I say, if it wasn't for breakfast, it was for dinner. We would sit down as a family, and that is something that we have not done in a long time. And we would talk. We would ask each other questions to bring up a conversation, then just to see what my boys thought about certain subjects, or whatever the case may be. And after that's done, we clean up the kitchen, and we go into the basement, and we watch a movie together. Or I'll play video games with the boys. Keith's not into the video game thing, but he'll sit and he'll watch TV while we play video games. But we're all there together. And what I told the boys, because KJ, he's having a hard time with this thing. I think more than me, because he wants to get out and see all his friends that he hasn't seen in a while. And KJ is my oldest. And so this is what I told him. I said, look, we can make the best of this. This is our opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better, because we have been so apart for so long that we kind of forgot, what it was like to be together. as a family. And so there's always things that we can do. Your kids are younger, Janita. And so and it's try to take a break from that. It may be a bit much, but you guys can take turns. Still where you're at, social distancing, we're distancing ourselves from everybody else outside of this house. However, inside of your house, you guys can take turns with the children. Will can take them when he can. He could take them and do activities with them, whatever the case may be, whether y'all want to make crafts or paint or whatever the case may be. Then, Janita, while he's doing that, you can lock yourself away in your room and binge watch whatever you want.
Oh, all day.
All day.
Yep.
All day. That's what you guys agree upon. It could be fine. So,
I was gonna make another suggestion.
Oh, okay. And I thought you were about to say something funny, but and so vice versa. Janita, when it's your turn to watch the kids, Will can go off and do whatever he wants to do all day without being interrupted. It has to get to a point where we're giving each other that same kind of space. So if you get to have uninterrupted time, he get to have uninterrupted time. So it's like about you guys finding that balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Whoever has the last shift with the kids, wear those kids out. And then one of y'all need to go and prepare a place. No, I'm serious.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't say it again.
I'm talking to the brothers.
Hold on.
Okay, get everything ready. Take your cell phone out. Call your wife. Tell her come upstairs, downstairs, wherever your bedroom is at. And do what Teddy Pendergrass said.
Turn off the light.
And light a candle.
Oh my gosh.
They gotta turn.
That's assuming that the other person isn't exhausted.
No.
Yeah. Don't get him started.
That's what I'm saying. The person with the last shift now, because now you got the other shift. You gotta get, took turns. You got to shift. You got to rest up. You got to prepare for this. This is.
You're right.
You ready?
Y'all about to be dismissed.
You gotta get your break in.
Now, she's gonna try by camera.
Watch this. Now, in the world, when the phone would ring at 2:00 in the morning, we ready, and we know what that's called. But now, it ain't no different. That's why I said take the cell phone, so you're gonna make it realistic and call her wherever she's at in the house. Make that call at 2:00 in the morning, right? And say, baby, look here.
Oh Jesus.
Kids are tucked away. They fed. They had arts and crafts. Whatever the case may be. Now it's our time.
That's it.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. See, people, there are people that are watching this broadcast and they know what I'm talking about. They get that certain phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning. There ain't nothing good coming out of that because you ain't married no way. You shouldn't be doing it.
I'm not talking politics.
I'm saying?
Y'all not talking about politics at 1 in the morning?
Right.
No.
You ain't talking about politics at 1 o'clock in the morning. And you ain't saying no then talking about I'm tired. Oh yeah, baby, come on over. Well, come on upstairs, babe. Let's get this party started right.
Right.
Let's get this party started right.
Oh my gosh. That's true. That's good. I mean, we do have to be creative, but I like the piece about the family time too. Like figuring out what you can do together as a family, but then also just even what you said about the picnic or like laying stuff down, like, you got the backyard, you got the park, like different stuff like that. But, just trying to find ways to be together as a couple and to reinforce that relationship. Because I mean, it's just, this can be stressful, like looking at the news all the time. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. And so it's like, how can we pull away from that and just enjoy each other? This is a great time to really like get to know your spouse. So if you miss, catch up in this evolution, like make, get caught up, get read up on your spouse.
let me just tell you this. I am actually enjoying Keith being home.
Mhm.
It has gotten to a point where he has been traveling so much that it has actually like started to weigh on me, and it would make me feel a little down because it wasn't like he was gone all week, but when he would leave and come back, it was like he was back on the hustle. I mean, back at work, meetings all day. He would come home tired. He would, I mean, we would say a few words, give each other a little kiss and a little hug, but now he's working from home. And so when he hangs up from that last call, I'm like, hey, babe, how's it going? And he'll tell me, I'm going to the basement. I'm
To the
going
basement.
to
To the basement. Yeah.
right. And he'll be like, I'm going upstairs. I'm going too. I'm following him.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
he's here. And I'm
Yeah.
taking full advantage of him being here. I'm like,
Mhm.
look, the boys, they can go on and do whatever they want to do, play video games all day long. It don't matter. As long as I got him, I'm good. I'm like, if
Mhm.
I got him, I'm good. Them boys can go and do whatever they want to do. I don't even care. I don't even ask them half of the time. I just be like,
Yeah.
where you at?
But again, we on the tail end of this particular
Right.
evolution.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
Right.
they could do that. They don't,
Right.
you know.
Right.
We just put a sign on the door. Don't bother me.
Right.
Don't go about your business.
Right. But when our kids were younger, Janita, like I said, me and Keith had to be real creative. We had to be very creative. And just this whole thing that's going on now with the coronavirus, I mean, I just feel like it's opportunity for couples to reconnect,
Mhm.
start talking. And one thing I was going to tell you is that during Valentine's Day, they sell conversation cards. They're like little love. They're conversation cards, and they're questions that will start conversations with your the person that you like.
Okay.
Kind of get the conversation flowing. Um, I hold on to stuff like that, or I make my own.
Okay.
And Keith and I will sit in the bed, and I'll ask him questions.
Hmm.
And they're not sexual questions. They're just questions about anything.
Yeah.
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 We're still learning each other. Even after 23 years, we're still learning each other. Counting up the days that we dated, that's 26 years together. So
Yeah.
one of those things where I would bust out conversation cards.
That's a
And
good idea.
and I would ask him questions and it would strike up a conversation between me and him.
I
Yeah.
see.
That's good. I like, because when you said that that you guys have been married for 23 years, some people may think, you hear them say, well, you should know me by now. And the reality is like, no,
You're
like,
changing.
yeah, I don't think we can ever say, I mean, yes, I know different aspects of you. I know different things. Like I know your favorite cookie or, but the reality is that we are always changing. You will never really 100% be like, I know you, 100%, especially if that person is growing, and evolving, like you just won't. So I like the question idea. I think that's really good. Yeah. And even with our
it goes back to that evolution stage. So
Mhm.
you go from the fine person in the club to the mama or daddy. That's a different life. To the old wise person, right? And so it's just evolution.
I own.
We're just wise. We're just wise. We're not. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me tell you a story that's going to embarrass my wife, but it's very transparent for those that are those that are listening about getting to know about reconnecting during this time with this virus, right? And everybody can cheer for this that's online. I do the laundry in the house, right? And I wash and I fold, right? I just don't leave them in the basket.
Hercules.
So the other day, I was folding clothes, and
I'm going to kill you.
I can't wait.
Deuces.
I saw this cute pair of underwear.
Oh my gosh, I don't know where this is going. I'm like, oh no, disconnect.
So I'm like,
Houston, we got a problem.
Yeah. So I'm like, wait a minute. I don't think I ever seen these for who's are these? But we get going, right? Trying to live, trying to work, trying to raise kids and all of this. And so I called downstairs. Matter of fact, I think she was on the phone with you, Janita.
I was actually texting you.
I was like, hey.
Oh,
and I said, are you busy? She said, yeah, a little bit. I said, don't worry about it. It's not important. So my son, who was happened to be in the room talking to me while I was folding clothes, he was like, Dad, what's on? I'm trying to figure out these are very cute underwear here.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Jesus. Girl, I'm done.
Not even
I go downstairs.
I'm done.
I go downstairs and she said, those are mine. So I'm thinking, you know what? I need to see you in these.
You know what? I'm done with him.
Maybe I see them and didn't pay attention.
Oh my!
But you need to see him to get confirmation. You got to see him to get confirmation.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
So, but she said, I always had these. Wait a minute. But that go to show you how busy we can get, and now we connect now, paying attention. And I want to look. We got to put these on because
Yeah.
Look, he done. He is done, child. He is finished and done. Turn off his mic.
I am speechless. I don't know. That's good. I'm like,
hey, noted.
Don't be scared.
Noted. That's the takeaway. You gonna do laundry.
That's true. That's true. You can't do it if you don't do laundry. That's right. Hey, that's right. Hey,
he don't know what he might discover.
That's right. $5 new pair of underwear. Y'all don't know. Take your pick. It's a example.
Oh Jesus! Oh my God!
Oh my goodness!
Over here.
Okay, yeah. I know.
We're gonna turn the
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. Huh?
I'm gonna choke him out.
I know. I'm gonna let you do it too.
We gotta cut the camera off of that though.
Yeah. That was actually all the questions that I had. We just ended it on that note.
Right.
Yeah.
Girl, he a hot man.
No, this was good. This was actually really helpful. This was really good. I think my biggest thing is the thing about evolution. I don't think I've ever heard it explained like that before. I've never thought about that. And just continue to get to know your spouse through each of the evolution.
Yeah.
That was really helpful for me.
What was your
takeaway, honey?
Yeah. No, I was gonna let you say, I was gonna say one last thing, but go ahead, Will. Say what you're gonna say.
Oh, I think the evolutionary steps are interesting too. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me, just understanding it. And I think the other thing is continuing to invest in your spouse. Mm-hmm. Whichever step that you're in, and it's going to look different based on the step. So figuring out ways that work for whatever step that you're in, so that you can be effective in that step.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Before we close out, I'm just going to tell everybody out there, marriage is work. And in order to have a successful marriage, you're going to have to want to put the work in. It's too many relationships are going towards divorce because people are just lazy. They don't want to put that work in because it doesn't happen as smoothly as they see it on TV. Yeah. That stuff that you see on TV ain't real. In order to have a real relationship, you're going to have to know that it's not going to always be sweet, and it's not going to always be smooth. You're going to have those sour days, and you're going to have those rocky days. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you have to make that decision. If this is the person that I plan on being with for the rest of my life, what can I do? Don't worry about what they're doing. Worry about yourself. What can I do?
That's good.
To make the relationship better. Because if you point your fingers at your spouse and say, if they do this, if they do that, All day long, you'll be picking out things that they could do to try to make the marriage better. But you're forgetting about what you're doing. And if you're not doing your part, how are you expecting them to do their part?
Yeah.
So remember that it takes two to tango, and you're not going to ever, hardly ever, I'll put it this way, agree. However, because you guys are two individuals in two different mindsets, you may not always agree on everything, but that doesn't mean that it's always wrong. Doesn't mean that the way your spouse is thinking or the way you're thinking is wrong. You're just thinking about things differently. And if you can respect that, I think your marriage will make it for 20 plus years. I mean, you'll be like our Bishop and First Lady, 50 something years married.
Wow. That's amazing.
And Bishop will tell you his liver still quivers. And he'll say,
right.
He would always crack me up when he would tell First Lady that, you make my liver quiver.
I remember hearing him say that too.
So it'll also be like my parents. My parents been married 46 years. So it's just one of those things where, it takes work. It takes work.
And I'll leave you guys this the pastor in me, as you heard my wife say that there's this, because you're man and she's woman, or vice versa, what have you. You may not agree on everything. This is why it's so important that you have a relationship with Christ and God, and God's in the center, because it's not what she thinks or what you think. It's about what God says. And if we can go to the Word of God and say, this if we can't agree on anything, we have to agree on what the Word of God says. And then we have to be able to take that and let that be our roadmap, our guidance. And so God is the ultimate intermediary for all marriages. Right. So, yeah.
Thank you, Janita. Oh, they're stuck again.
For doing this.
Or they're just pausing. Okay. Are y'all stuck? Are y'all playing a joke on us?
No.
I said they're stuck again. And then all of a sudden I see Janita move. Is that on purpose?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I think it's starting to freeze up now. But I you guys for doing that good. It was good for me. I know that people who were watching, I know it was good for them as well. I can see some of the on my side. So I appreciate y'all doing this. I knew that y'all would be the right couple for this. So thank you guys. Thank you for doing so things to our life and our marriage, for as long as we've known y'all, even now. So I'm grateful to have y'all in our life, and y'all are definitely one of our mentors for sure. When it comes in general. So I appreciate it. So.
But we're so thankful to have you two in our lives, because I feel like you both have a beautiful relationship. You have a beautiful marriage. And I love how you both connect and interact with one another. I love it. And so I think that you'll have plenty more years to come.
Cheers.
Oh,
Cheers.
man, we receive it.
Amen.
Okay, I'm about to take you off right now. I had it. Stop. Go Gators. Go Gators. All right.
I love you guys.
Let me go for this turn ugly. Y'all. Bye.
Bye, Janita.
Bye.